Hello, this is the Pathos video from Miss G's comp classes. In this video, I will be talking about the rhetorical appeal Pathos, and I'll also look at the reading journal and Essay 3 topic proposal assignments in Blackboard. As always, the course listed in this video may not be the course you're enrolled in. So we already know that Pathos is appealing to emotion because we analyzed the different appeals for Essay 1. And of course, now we're just trying to think about it in terms of how to utilize these appeals to our own reader. And I would recommend reading reading the chapter on Pathos before watching this video because I'm just going to look over a few sort of notes before we look at the assignment. So what does Pathos do? Why should we use it? You know, a lot of times when we think about what makes an effective argument, it's, some of the first answer is evidence or statistics. And studies actually show that people respond more to emotions than to numbers. So we want to make sure we do use it, but of course use it responsibly. And so to do that, or some responsible ways to do that, are to show our passion for the topic, to make a connection with our reader, right? We want to show them that either we feel their pain, or that we want to illustrate our own so that they can understand that. Especially when we're dealing with a hostile audience, like what we're doing for Essay 3, it's really important to sort of show that we got to make sure we find some common ground with our reader before moving on to something where there isn't common ground. And also, if we do have a topic, some topics are just a little more technical, right? Like number-driven, data-driven topics. So sometimes it's appropriate to bring in emotional appeals just to kind of make it more tangible to a human reader. And some of us, we talked about this in week 7 in terms of, or sorry, week 8, I'm getting confused on the weeks, when we started this unit in terms of not overdoing emotions. So I just have a short video to watch and illustrate that.
What are we looking at? Formaldehyde, acrolein, nitrobenzene. This actually has over 7,000 chemicals. Don't get me started on what they do to you. Prematurely wrinkled skin, stunted lung growth, Mr. Essler. Tooth loss, cancer. Mr. Essler. Hang on. If cigarettes looked as dangerous as they are, we would run like hell. Find out the real cost of tobacco.
So here, excuse me, so here the question becomes, a lot of emotion can affect the reader, but in that case, I would say not very many people would say they quit smoking just from watching that, sort of dramatic video, or did they? And again, that's just going to depend on the audience and all that. Our book also does mention that in general, bad or negative emotions like fear, what was one of the other ones? I realized I was in the wrong chapter. Fear, hatred, envy, or greed. They mention that at the top of page 34, right? They might be memorable, but maybe not as persuasive. So I have another commercial that I'd like you guys to kind of think about and answer the question in your head whether or not it strikes the right balance of emotional appeal.
All right, Emma, I know it's not your favorite, but what is it? It's you. It's me? All right, Emma, I know it's not your favorite, but it's time for your medicine, okay? You ready? 1, 2, 3. Emma, 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 banana, fana, Emma, P5, Emma, Emma. Very good, sweetie. How do you feel? Good. Yeah, you did a really good job, okay?
To nurses everywhere, thank you from Johnson & Johnson.
So there we see an appeal to a softer emotion. And again, it sort of remains to be seen or, considered how effective it is based on the audience it's appealing to. So the next thing to think about is how can I use pathos in my paper? I keep pronouncing it differently. It's pathos, I think, is the correct way to pronounce it. So as our book points out, the topic is one of the easiest ways to bring emotion into our paper in terms of some topics are just more emotional than others. And that's a big reason why I ask students, one of the big reasons I ask students to avoid broad, ongoing controversies for this essay and essay two, because um, sometimes it's too hard to divorce ourselves from those emotions, and same for our reader. But yeah, sometimes a well-chosen topic can bring in a good amount of pathos. Of course, using personal experience, again, the idea of connecting with the reader, especially if, or only if it's relevant to the topic. So for example, if something was about college tuition, right? If you are a college student, it makes perfect sense to bring in personal experience to show not only pathos, but also ethos. Probably the most clear way to add pathos to a topic is to bring in word choice, or to specific word choice deliberately, meant to elicit those emotions. And our book has a section on humor that I think makes a lot of good points about how sometimes we can point things out in a way that are funny that gets people, sort of gets past their guard. Of course, we always have to remember, at least for essays in this class, that we want to maintain an academic tone, but that doesn't mean we can't be humorous. And of course, images are very easy targets of pathos. So basically, the bottom line with pathos is think carefully about your audience. And if I want to make them feel a certain way, how can I do that? Right? And so we have to very deliberately picture them and think about what they care about, so we can do that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is looking ahead to Reading Journal 6. I wanted to look at a couple images here on my PowerPoint before looking at the actual prompt. So I have an image up here, right? So going off the idea that images can produce emotions. And so I want you guys to think, as you look at this image, about what emotions do we think the artist wanted us to feel when we looked at this campaign image for Obama. So I'm seeing, kind of the red, white, and blue scheme. So definitely patriotic. The look on his face, it's sort of forward, upward looking. So obviously that's tying in with the words. Yes, we can. It's that hopeful sort of image. All right. So the emotions I would describe are sort of patriotic and hopeful, as opposed to maybe this image, which is one of our maybe typical perfume ads, right, where it's sort of naked people. But I would say from the point of view of the creator of Calvin Klein, right, they're trying to elicit, maybe desire. It's for the actual, it's for cologne for men. So yeah, desire, maybe thinking, all right, if I wear this perfume, this woman will look at me, or women will look at me like this woman is. Um, but I think this is also a good example of maybe a poorly chosen image in terms of, not, some people might look at it and think other things, right? But again, it's all about our audience. So I'm here in Blackboard now, and the reading journal, the first part of Reading Journal 6, asks you to do the respond prompt on page 44. And this is at the end of chapter 2 if you have the ebook. And there's a list there on page 44 of some different images or slogans, just kind of like what I looked at with the Obama and the Obsession for Men ad. So I want you to choose 3 of the slogans. I think there's about, I'd say about 10 or 12 there. And I want you to basically do what I just did there. So what specific emotions do the following slogans, sales pitches, or maxims appeal to, right? So choose 3 and then list a few emotions that you feel are being appealed to, or what the authors are trying to appeal to. Okay. The second part of the reading journal I think is pretty straightforward. I want you to find a magazine, so something you have lying around, or you maybe could borrow from someone who has one lying around, or you could borrow one from the library, or just use one while you're there to answer these questions. So thinking about, of course, just let me know what magazine you're analyzing. If it's not, who is the audience for it? And then from there, I want you to pick one ad that you think is effective in appealing to that particular audience. So, if I was some kind of maternity magazine, would obviously be for, expectant mothers. And then I might find an ad for, diapers, right? And then I would, obviously that's connected to a woman about to have a baby, etc. So again, sort of thinking about what emotions the images or image in the ad appeals to, similar to what we did with part one, but then also tying that in, that appropriateness. So like I said, emotions maybe of tenderness and care when we see a picture of a baby, especially for an expectant mother, might be super appropriate. And then I also wanted to look at the topic proposal assignment here. Just like we discussed in class this week, you really should already know your controversy, but just to help me remember and keep everything straight, go ahead and briefly describe it, and then also tell me which side you're going to take in the controversy for essay 3. And then tell me who your audience is. And remember that your audience should be hostile to your claim. So if you're, for something, they're going to be anti that, okay? Or it might be more complicated, and generally will be more complicated than that. And then remember thinking about those 3 purposes for persuasion. Are you wanting them to do something, to think something, or to believe something? All right, here we go. It's the test.
Pathos.
Pathos. I was completely wrong both ways, which is pretty funny because I've been teaching for about 13 years. So this is the end of the Pathos video. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'll catch you on the flip side.